Hey everybody, welcome to Fractured Focus, episode number 21, the show where we obsess about everything from geek culture to nerd news, along with random topics for discussion. I'm one of your hosts, Ben Gordon, alongside my brother, the illustrious Dan Gordon. Dan, how you doing?
Doing great. Happy weekend.
It is a happy weekend.
It is.
It's a joyous weekend. Warm weather, spring is here, and more importantly, coming in live from the great state of Nebraska, the original Swino of Omaha himself, Matt Swinehart. Matt, spring's in the air. How you doing?
I'm still stuck on the fact that winter's coming.
He's a Thrones initiate now. He's addicted. He's got the Thrones crack. Well, we'll segue from Thrones and jump right into our topics because it was a big weekend for Star Wars. You know, I don't even remember Star Wars Celebration being like the convention that everybody went to. I didn't even know it was just a Star Wars convention like Star Trek has been doing for years until, I don't know, a year or two ago. And then I started checking in with all the stuff they were doing at these conventions, and I started thinking, yeah, why haven't they been doing that for a long time? Because Star Trek's been doing conventions since, what, like the 60s or 70s? Mm-hmm. But Star Wars Celebration happened this weekend in Orlando, and a bunch of new stuff came out of it. Obviously, one of the biggest things was the trailer for The Last Jedi. We've already done a reaction to that, so you can check that out on the channel, youtube.com/fracturedfocus. But there was some other cool stuff that came out of it, and I know that we're hesitant to talk about anything Star Wars related, but being that there was this convention going on this weekend, I thought it would be wrong not to go into these topics ad nauseum. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one. Rebels Season 4 trailer, and there were some announcements that came along with it. Dave Filoni, awesome lead creative writer, director, or whatever you want to call for that show, who did a great job with the Clone Wars, and now announced this will be the last season of Star Wars Rebels.
So sad.
Obviously, that's not something they just came to a decision to, because these episodes take like a year and a half to make, so they've known this stuff going down the pipe, and so this has probably been the plan the whole time. I'm assuming it's going to end right as we lead up to Rogue One. We're going to have some more tie-ins this season, like Saw Gerrera, the falling out between him and the rebellion that they actually talk about in Rogue One. What's the name of the actor that played Saw Gerrera?
Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker. Mm-hmm. Already reprised his voice for one episode in Rebels Season 3. He's going to be doing again for the fourth. The same actress that does Mon Mothma is going to be back for it. Trailer looked awesome. Dave Filoni said it was going to be darker. I'm assuming a lot of people die in this. I mean, we'll talk about that. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and jump into that right now. What did you guys think about the teaser or the trailer for Season 4? Matt, I know that you haven't been watching Rebels on a regular basis, but did you get a chance to look at that trailer?
I did get a chance to look at the trailer, and with Rebels, I've only really caught the highlights. Mm-hmm. You sent me a list of episodes to watch.
Yep.
So, I mean, some of the character stuff I'm aware of. The trailer looked awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything in there. My biggest problem right now is I'm kind of mixing the trailer in my head with the Battlefront trailer as well. So it's like trying to differentiate between the two.
And then they'll throw some Westeros stuff in there too.
Yeah. There's something about Westeros and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just throw it all in.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah. It looks awesome. What'd you think?
I liked it. There were a couple things in there that I thought were kind of cool, but I guess overall from a trailer, nothing really stood out for me. I mean, part of that too was going into Season 3, where we jump into kind of like almost like a semi-matured Ezra, mm-hmm. and kind of like a teaser as far as, all right, now they're involved not just as a lone rebel shell. This is a full-on organized rebellion.
It's really assembling.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the big draw from 3 was. So kind of 4, you can kind of tell by Hera's voice when she's narrating this trailer that this is a culmination point. This mm-hmm. is kind of going to be. It's kind of like what Filoni was referring to. It's the end of this arc,
right?
And I think that's significant, but again, it was just kind of like a 1 point.
And it kind of makes sense.
Trailer.
It kind of has to, because basically the story they were telling.
Yeah, they can't really expand out like in new areas now, or take it new areas. It's kind of like we're pushing down to the finish line here, and we want to make that clear that that's what what the season's going to be doing.
One of the things that I remember in the voiceover hearing Kanan say, this is one of the reasons, like maybe it was because of the Force, whatever. We were meant to be here for this moment, and I'm assuming that's going to lead up to Ezra and Kanan somehow sacrificing themselves for the rebellion, because I can't imagine them keeping them alive. It would just seem so weird going into Rogue One, and especially the original trilogy, that, oh, by the way, there are these 2 other kind of Jedi that are around. I mean, the whole point, I think, of Luke and Obi-Wan's journey is that Luke is maybe not the last, only Luke and Obi-Wan being not only the last Jedi, if you don't count Yoda, alive in the entire galaxy, but really is the focal point. So having these exterior characters that we've watched for 4 years leading up to the rebellion that, well, yeah, they're still out there.
Yeah.
So Luke's not really the only hope, but we're just going to say that. I mean, I think they kind of have to make a big sacrifice. And
Well,
I think
yeah,
they've been playing
that kind of presence is going to be known in the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mon Mothma has had direct contact with these people.
Yeah.
The leadership have had direct contact with Force wielders.
Right.
And the fact that, by the way, you're going to have a kid who's never heard of it just kind of show up out of the blue, and part of this kind of feeds into remember the comic series for right after the New Hope ended.
Oh,
It'd be
yeah.
unusual to kind of see Luke trying to explore and learn about the Jedi.
And they
when
just
you
ignore
already
these
have
other
a
two
guy
guys over there. Yeah.
that are already, fine. You want to learn how to lift stuff? I can show you that. You don't
Yeah.
have to, kind of just figure that out on your own. You want to learn how to wield a lightsaber? I can show you how to do that too.
Yeah.
All this stuff.
Yep. Did you, Matt? Did you get a chance to watch any of the last few episodes of season 3 with Admiral Thrawn coming into the mix at all?
I haven't.
Oh
No.
man, having Thrawn come in there, and again, I think we've talked about that in the show. But for those of you watching that aren't familiar with Thrawn, he was like the main antagonist from that Heir to the Empire trilogy that Timothy Zahn did from years and years ago, that are heralded as some of the best Star Wars books like ever put out. Thrawn being one of the favorite villains of all time. Sometimes people just love him even more than the Emperor because he wasn't so one-dimensional, just like evil, a symmetry of the devil. He was just kind of very calculating, smart, studying art.
It was an interesting break from the mold too, is because one of the setups for the Empire is kind of how they're characterized is a very rigid, very, we'll just call it racist, very everything bad you can think about of an organization that is
Fascist regime.
Yeah. And you can kind of tell because and you can also see this within the First Order as well, is that it's all humanoids. I mean, Thrawn is the only real alien, what we would call an alien race, that's able to rise to that level of power as far as a Grand Admiral. Otherwise, everything else, if you're an alien race, you're down with the pig snouts doing engineering, or you're doing some kind of low-level stuff. But this guy, he is so good at what he does that they're more or less forced. The Empire's more or less forced to overlook that because he is so valuable to what they do.
Yeah, and
it's
what's
so
interesting?
captivating.
With I remember when they first announced Rebel was going to come out, I would think, well, with Dave Filoni doing it and the same group that did the Clone Wars, this is going to be awesome, and it was. But I kept thinking, man, if they develop this big group of core characters that are important and they don't end up killing them off, it just kind of changes the impact that episode 4, 5, and 6. But I think that the way that they've been doing this so well with the story group and everything they got going on Lucasfilm, like everything else they've done, it makes so much sense. Like at the end of season 3, even though we've watched the rebellion kind of come together, they got decimated at the end of 3. They got Thrawn kicked their asses. Their base that they've been building up to and bringing all these ships together, a lot of it was decimated. So the fact that they're going to now have to go up, coming from almost being eliminated and out of the equation to getting the rebellion at least back up to where it was in Rogue One, where they're still kind of fighting amongst themselves, but at least there's a big core group that are working together. It makes a lot of sense that knowing that you got Thrawn that's already basically kicked the rebellion's ass, it's going to take a big sacrifice to overcome that and even get to the point where they'd have to be in Rogue One. And I think that that's one of the good things that the trailer showed, that, and when Dave Filoni said it's going to be a darker season, we're going to do a lot of different things that we've never done before. Don't even know what that means. But we know that Harrison Dula, who's now captain of Phoenix Squadron, will be eventually promoted to general, just like she's addressed in Rogue One. That's going to be really cool. Again, we don't know what's going to happen to Kanan Ezra. We got to kind of assume they're going to die.
Something has to happen where they have to be pushed out of the rebellion in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's they die or whether they decide to leave or something, they can't. It's very difficult to kind of reconcile these two characters existing within the story or the story arcs once we start hitting like Rogue One and New Hope. Obviously, we know that the Ghost showed up in Rogue One. We see it like
that's
several
still
times.
Around.
General
Chopper's
still there.
Chopper's still around, but since Dave Filoni has specifically said that Rebels is all about family, Kanan and Hera kind of like the mom, and they're kind of watching like Sabine go off on her own, and Ezra a little bit when he went out to go look for Obi-Wan and stuff. So since the whole core concept of Rebels seems to be about family, and we know that the Ghost, Chopper, and Hera is in Rogue One and ultimately still fighting in the rebellion through the prequels, but the original movies, but not a principal character, I can't imagine the rest of the family core group not being around unless something significantly bad. There was a sacrifice, which I think is a great way to end this too.
Yeah, sure. Still think Ezra's going to become Snoke?
I don't know. We've talked about that too. We thought that Ezra... or it made sense that Ezra is the one that ends up becoming Snoke. That was our guess. I don't know about that anymore. Oh. You know, it'd be cool if they did that.
You think this will shed some light on that?
Well, the fact that we know that Kanan was never a full-fledged Jedi. He was a Padawan when Order 66 happened. So he went into hiding right away. He never achieved the position of Jedi Knight. He was only a Padawan for a very short amount of time. So when we find him in Rebels, and he's finally, for the first time in years, taking out his lightsaber and choosing to acknowledge who he is, and then goes into one of the temples, officially gets anointed as a Jedi Knight. He hasn't gone through the full Jedi training. He's passing on to Ezra what he does know to try to help him, but Ezra had a lot more... I don't know if you could call it temptations. I think everybody that goes through any kind of Force or Jedi training, of course you're dealing with that temptation, but he delves a lot more into the dark side than anything we've seen before. I mean, he's working with Maul a little bit.
He's done that nasty thing to the Walker pilot.
Yeah, that's right. And then he's even using some Sith techniques to like open up the Sith holocron, something a Jedi can't do. So there was definitely some mixes of not just taking from the Jedi side that we thought would make sense. If you're trying to, one of the reasons that we thought maybe they were cutting off the Clone Wars and just canceling it, because they were still going to go into season 8 is what they had planned. But that in retrospect, years down the road, when we finally hit episode 8 and 9, maybe is when they finally revealed that Snoke was actually Ezra, and the reason they started Rebels so quickly was because they wanted to give some backstory to this character. But that could completely not be the case. You know, this could be just something else where they wanted to get audiences to focus again about the original trilogy, too. So we don't know. I just thought it would have been cool if they did that. I really believe that there was a good chance of that happening. And now, the way everything's going, I wouldn't even say 50-50. I'd say it's possible, but not likely.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, guys. As the ignorant party, as far as for not knowing Rebels as well as you guys. So... this leads right into Rogue One, right?
At the end of season 4, it should be leading right into Rogue One, yes.
Okay. So, have they how many characters from Rogue One have they introduced into Rebels?
Mon Mothma.
You got Cassian in there?
Who?
Nope.
Mon Mothma, Saw Gerrera. I don't think they need to introduce the other characters from Rogue One because they were kind of introduced in their own way in the movie. There was ties to Saw Gerrera in Rebels. There was a whole 1 or 2 episodes with him in it because that was actually important to the story. You know, like what's going on as the rebellion is coming together. Well, it's not even a rebel alliance yet. It's just a bunch of cells. Mon Mothma was on 1 episode so far towards the end of season 3. When they all actually say, okay, and she actually finally has to absolve herself from the Senate because she's been trying to do this diplomatically since Palpatine took over. That has not worked. And it's gotten to the point where finally she finally spoke out and sent out a huge transmission saying we need to fight against the Empire. So she's not going back to the Senate. She's going to be killed.
Yeah.
So those to my memory are the only ones that are really the principal characters from Rogue One that we've actually seen in.
They did like a one episode on where Leia shows up.
Yeah, they did have one episode of Leia.
You see Bail Organa.
We had Bail Organa. You're right. Other than that,
what about the Imperial droids? Like,
not those, but there's been other Imperial droids. In fact, we might start seeing the same model that was K2SO possibly in the 4th season.
Yeah.
When that I think Dave Filoni was talking about that in an interview. He loved the K2SO robot. By the time that was being made for the movie, they were already into production for season 3 and couldn't get that in there. We may or may not see that in 4. We are going to see U-Wings from Rogue One. We're going to see those. And another big thing is the potential of Ahsoka because Dave Filoni came out on stage and he was wearing the shirt that said Ahsoka lives with a question mark because he loves teasing the audience, and he has said that in some shape or form she is going to be back on the show. Dan and I agree. She died. Vader killed her in the season finale of season 2. That is the best possible ending you can give to that character. It was symbolic. It meant a lot. We think it's going to be a flashback, or I can't imagine a Force ghost, but there's going to be something that they do with
I'd be
her.
very disappointed if it was a Force ghost.
But knowing them, they would do it with good reason. They would only do it if they had good reason.
Yeah.
But I agree. I don't right now. That wouldn't be what I would want to see.
Yeah.
But
Give me
after they
give me a holocron. Give me an Ahsoka holocron.
Right.
And then
but one of the then this erupted all over the internet, especially obviously for the Star Wars fans, is after they showed the season 4 trailer. He didn't say anything, but this was pointed out big. He went backstage and changed T-shirts, didn't even call attention to it. It wasn't brought up or nobody noticed during it. He changed the T-shirt to Ahsoka Lives !
Oh, really?
So now you have all these blogs saying Ahsoka's definitely alive, and again, he's messing with us.
Damn you, Dave.
We know that Ahsoka's going to be back in some form. He's already said that.
Yeah.
But everybody jumping to the conclusion that she's alive, maybe my gut is no, like that. That's the best possible death that character could have had, and I really hope that they keep that. It was the Darth Vader duel that actually did it to her, and I love that it left it vague for interpretation. But my guess is she's not. Who knows? Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we will see her.
Possibly, but
yeah, I wouldn't want to see it that way too. But awesome show so far, and he said that even though this is the end of Star Wars Rebels, obviously it is not the end of Star Wars animation. It's already been rumored for the last year that they're already working on the next. We don't know what time period that's going to take place at during.
Wow. They have 30 years to fill.
I know, right?
Between
It's
the
so open-ended.
The end of Jedi and the beginning of...
My guess is it's going to be taking place sometime after Return of the Jedi. And maybe I shouldn't say my guess. That's my hope. And it seems logical because what else are you going to do now that the focus is primarily on 7, 8, and 9? Go back into more Clone Wars stuff or go back into more during the original trilogy? Like, why? We don't really... I mean, there's good stories to tell, but it seems like the focus should be more on the new trilogy or in between leading up to it, answering questions.
He's done such a good job
tough,
with the storytelling, though. I mean, I would love to see what he does in between episodes 4 and 5.
Who? Oh, what Dave Filoni did? I agree with that. I think that the Marvel Comics did such a good job with the principal characters. If they were going to do something, since the comics have already covered a lot of that, unless they were going to rehash what was done in the comics, which I don't see them doing, they might operate with completely different side characters, which is fine. But like, I am way more curious now. What the hell happened between 6 and 7 in that 30 years?
So maybe
that'd be a tough sell though to me because you cannot make that without including Luke, Han, Leia.
Yeah,
those would have to be
harder. You're right.
In that.
You're right.
You couldn't do it and not include them. Be like the elephant in the room for the whole season. It's like, when are they showing up?
Every episode.
Why are these people important when these people are really important?
Dude, simple fix. Right as Luke's walking out the door, the curtains go up and we start this episode. Thanks, Luke. No problem. I'll talk to you later. No, what's going on over here?
Yeah.
Man, we just missed it. God, that is the coolest outfit, Leia. And she's, behind the curtain that we're not even seeing over there, too, and just piss people. You're right. The more I think about that, thank you for dashing my hopes.
He saved you from yourself. Come on.
Yeah. That would be hard to do because even if you did something like the early years of Kylo Ren, how he was seduced by Snoke, how do you do that without the principal characters from the movie? You're right. That would be difficult. But at least we know we're getting something else, and the caliber of Dave Filoni and the story group that they put out, aside from the usual, which they'll even admit, the filler episodes or the super kiddie ones that they have to throw in there because Star Wars has primarily been for kids with this, bigger, broader audience. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what it is, and I'm glad they didn't show anything from it too, because that would take attention away from when the season looks to be very pivotal and important. And I'm pumped for season 4, especially when he says it's going to be darker and we're going to do a lot of things we've never done before. I can't wait to see what that is, because they even got the.
Have they mentioned the Death Star?
Yes.
In Rebels?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Actually, they've even, in Geonosis is, because that society was big on building things, is where that original frame of the Death Star, as they were building it at the end of Episode 3 and Vader and Palpatine are looking up, was orbiting Geonosis. In Rebels, they're out at Geonosis, and the entire population has been decimated. It's gone, and no one knows why. It's because the Empire wanted to cover their tracks. So there's a whole bunch of building materials out there, and the rebels have no frickin' idea what it is. And actually, when they start talking to Saw Gerrera, he keeps saying that there's rumors of a big weapon they're working on. So it's all hints and ties in to leading up to Rogue One. So the tie-ins that they have are just awesome. But I don't know. I'm pumped for this. You guys have anything else to go over for Star Wars Rebels Season 4?
I'm going to have to start watching so I can get caught up.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you can catch up pretty
After
quick.
the Thrones.
There aren't what is it, 13 or is it 20 some episodes? Yeah, it's 18 to 20 episodes per season, but they're half hour.
One thing I did notice too, Sabine's sister.
Bo-Katan's going to, or not, isn't it her aunt is going to be?
I'm sorry, yeah, her aunt.
Bo-Katan is going to be in Season 4, yep.
It looks like she did not age at all from Clone Wars. That might have been the image, but it looks like, seeing...
well, how old was Yoda?
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't human, so that argument is null and void.
Because we saw the transition, what happened to Obi-Wan from Clone Wars to Rebels.
Filoni addressed that too. He said, well, if you look at Bail Organa between trilogies and how someone normally ages, Bail Organa looks like the most natural, because it was only a span of... well, let's see. There was the original... Episode 1 was, 30 years before 4?
How old is Ezra?
Ezra is the same age as Luke.
So that was about 17?
Empire Day was his birthday. So, 16, 17 years old. You're right. And...
I would have expected to see a little more mileage
So
on this
17 years later.
17?
Yeah, because, I mean, if you look at Bail Organa and add 16 years or whatever it was, with his gray hair... and a politician with money. I mean, that's kind of the way he would look. One of the reasons that Dave Filoni said that Obi-Wan looks probably more ravaged than most people do at that age. He's living on Tatooine under terrible conditions. But, I mean, that might be just I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but let's see how she actually looks in the show, because we really have no way of knowing. But, that is going to be cool that Bo-Katan is going to be back. I don't know how much you got into that on the Clone Wars, but the woman that Obi-Wan was actually in love with at one point, Sabine, who was the
Duchess of Mandalore.
The Duchess of Mandalore. Those are some awesome freaking episodes. But we're pumped for it. Ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think in the comments below about Season 4 Rebels. You pumped to see it? Did this trailer get you excited for it? What have we missed? Probably not much. We pretty much got this down. But I'm sure you can find something. Let us know.
You're welcome, Internet.
Let us know in the comments below.